Just as Pastor Poju said, I've been attending the platform for the past 7 odd years or so. So you might need to test the platform. And I must say that the platform has through the years become possibly the foremost opportunity for ideas and intellectual innovation in Nigeria. Every year, it lays out as many thought leaders of the big ideas, the aspirational heights, and the solutions that must occur in our nation's journey to its incredibly great destiny. I'd like to thank Pastor Poju and his team for their tenacity and consistency, not only in always putting together a great event, but also their unwavering belief in the capacity of our nation to surmount its problems and attain greatness. Today, I want to share with you a glimpse of an aspect of the future. But permit me to begin with a story about myself. All my adult life, I've always believed that our country was performing far below its potential. In practically every aspect of life, in governance, corruption was always so outrageous that it made the majority poor and development almost impossible. Law and order was always a problem. Usually no consequence for wrongdoing. Doing business and even our daily existence has always been difficult. No power, no fuel. Getting anything done in government establishments, a nightmare of delay and extortion. So, as a decision, as a conscious decision, I joined various pressure groups, from human rights groups to good governance advocacy groups. In 1995, I co-founded an organization called Integrity. It was an anti-corruption organization. I joined various think tanks and professional groups, including the Concerned Professionals. Under the ABUJA regime, we concerned professionals one day, many gathered at the Yaba bus stop in suits and were thoroughly beaten by the police and the army. From that day on, people disappeared and did not show up again, but that's another story. I served as a 2-term Attorney General in Lagos State and pushed reforms in governance and the justice sector. I believed and continue to believe that the Nigerian people deserve better lives. In 2014, the completely unexpected happened. I was nominated as vice presidential candidate to the then General Muhammadu Buhari. I was 27 years old when Buhari became head of state after a corrupt and somewhat disappointing civilian regime. As a young university lecturer then, I was impressed by his single-minded fight against corruption and indiscipline. There was a serious war against indiscipline. For the first time, government held corrupt officers accountable. 30 years later, Providence brought us together. A retired general now and a professor of law. We both believed that our country needed to change. We argued about how and about what needed to be done. We reached consensus on many of the major issues. Certainly, our country needs a different set of values, a new way of doing business, an economy that's able to give opportunity to young people to work in their chosen professions and to build strong and profitable businesses. We knew that we had to provide social protection for the poorest and the most vulnerable. We recognized that innovation and change would be key, and that we must implement and not just talk about diversification of our economy. So we led our party's campaign on that single, simple, but profound word, change. Nearly a year on, there are many problems, and many have asked, where is the change? Is this the change we voted for? Even some fifth columnists in our midst have suggested bring back corruption. But let me just say here for the record that the government of Muhammadu Buhari is completely and irrevocably committed to change. We believe that though it may not be easy, though the early signs may be confusing and sometimes discouraging, there has never been a better opportunity than now to turn the country in the direction of success. Today we have the best opportunity in decades for profound change. It's an opportunity in a generation, a revolution whose time has come. Everything around us tells us that the moment is now. Can this change happen? Yes, indeed, it can. What do we have in our hands to make it happen? We have a country that is tired of corruption, tired of leadership without values, tired of an economy that is neither designed to accommodate enterprise nor to create opportunity and wealth for the majority. But we have the leadership and we have a leader prepared to challenge the rotten status quo. One who has said that he's prepared to kill corruption rather than let it kill us. But we must admit that the problems are many. They include a depreciating currency, falling revenues from the main source of revenue, which is oil, low external reserves, foreign exchange scarcity, which has affected importation of raw materials for industry, trade payment arrears, leading to a slowing down in the overall economy and falling GDP, power shortages, fuel scarcity. Power shortages and fuel scarcity are products of one or many of the factors above. These problems are temporary, not because they are not tough or old and recurring problems, but because today you have a leadership with the sincerity and commitment to solve them, and a people that are impatient and ready for change. What we must do is not to blink. No shaking. Let us stay the course. Let's keep our focus and see our country turn around. Let's look at a few of the problems. Power, for example. What is the answer to the power problems? In November 2015, and twice since then, for the first time in Nigeria's history, we generated 5,000 megawatts of power. Of course, many will recall that in the early months and even up until towards the end of December, power supply was relatively stable. But come February 14, 2016, sophisticated vandals hit the Focado's export terminal, which supplies over 40% of gas going to our power plants. And we lost in total about 1,500 megawatts of power in generation. Now, how do you solve the problem? First, aside from fixing the Focado's plant, which will take up until May, amidst threats of vandalization, we need to expand the sources and volumes of our gas assets. Gas is available, but pipelines are not. So we must build new pipelines to take gas from gas plants to the power plants. And that's what we're doing at the moment. There are several gas pipeline projects all over the country awarded at various times. Very few were ever completed. And a lot of money, of course, has gone into the contracts for these gas pipelines. But you cannot have gas without piping them to the power plants. So a lot of that has to be done today. A lot of what we're going to be spending on power is completing projects that have been abandoned or projects that have just been discontinued for one reason or the other. Transmission is another problem. In the short to medium term, we're working to complete many of the abandoned transmission assets. We're also working on the distribution companies to meter their customers. Customers must also pay, otherwise the generating and distribution companies will collapse. Telecommunications companies in Nigeria have survived and expanded because everyone is forced to pay their bills. And the only way by which the power sector will survive and thrive is if we all pay our bills. But it's a chicken and egg situation. People say, I don't have power, so why should I pay? And of course, the distribution and the generation and distribution companies say, if you don't pay, how can we produce power? But I think that the simple solution is that a more efficient system, which is what we are working on, will certainly encourage payment, but pay we must. We've dropped fixed charges today. There are no more fixed charges. In other words, you do not pay necessarily because you own a facility. You don't have to pay any fixed charges anymore, and it's only the tariffs that are to be paid. But of course, there are still arguments around that. How about fuel? Almost all the petrol we use is imported, and I think Sheon just pointed that out. So with scarcity of foreign exchange, it has become difficult for independent marketers to import fuel. The NMPC has had to import and distribute almost all the fuel that the country uses. So what is the solution? We must get the independent marketers to source their foreign exchange so that they can bring in fuel to complement NNPC imports. But the medium to long-term plan is the new initiative to get the private sector to build what are described as co-located refineries and new refineries, so that by the end of 2018, we'll be producing most of our petrol locally. Now, this is a problem that we need not experience. And the reason is just as has been pointed out. There's no reason why a country with the amount of crude that we have to be importing refined petroleum products. But that's where we find ourselves today. And so once there's a scarcity of foreign exchange, you're going to have problems in importing. So what we do and what has been done is to swap, to send your crude abroad and get it back in the form of refined petroleum. That the government does about 50% of imports. But in the past few months, the government itself has been almost importing the entire 100% of refined petroleum imports because of the scarcity of foreign exchange. NMPC really lacks the capacity to distribute petrol across the country. So the independent marketers are key. They must be involved in the distribution of petroleum products. But we'll get there, and we'll get there quickly enough once we're able to change the paradigms. I know that many people today just ask the question, how can we have so much and yet so little? But these are the answers that we'll be providing, and I'm sure that very, very soon we'll see a vast improvement. How about the ease of doing business in Nigeria? I think it was my sister Ibukun Awoshika who said that you have to know someone in order to get any kind of approval. Nigeria, somehow, we have rigged a system where it is so difficult to get anything done, especially through the public services. The mandate of our Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment is to ensure that there is a noticeable difference in the ease of doing business. And that is to say that pre-investment approvals, especially those coming from the federal government, must be easy to access. They must be easy to obtain. And he has a mandate to work over the next 18 months to ensure that we move 30 spaces in the Ease of Doing Business Index, which is an index which is compiled by by the World Bank. How will we create jobs? We will deepen the diversification of the economy. The big areas of focus are agriculture, the agro-allied value chain, solid minerals, petrochemicals, technology, and entertainment. And I'll talk a bit about technology and entertainment as we go on. But I want to say, just because for those of us who live in the urban areas, agriculture really doesn't mean much. But it's very important for us to bear in mind that today, agriculture is the second largest employer of labor in Nigeria, and it can expand. We need to be completely self-sufficient in rice production, in wheat, in tomato, and several of these products that today drain our foreign exchange. Just to take an example of rice, the demand for rice is about 7 million metric tons. We produce only 2.7 locally, so we import the difference. So we spend almost $4 billion to $5 billion US every year on rice. So how did we approach that, and how are we approaching it? We've picked 10, 11, probably 11 states that will produce rice. Just take an example of Kebbi State, for example. Kebbi State is a state that has always traditionally produced rice. But in the past 1 year, we started a scheme of empowering the farmers with money and inputs to double their production. In this year, in the past 4 months, Kebbi State had an investment of 7.5 billion, which was given directly to farmers for inputs and for other services. And now they're producing almost 1 million metric tons of rice. For a country that needs 7 million metric tons of rice, if one state is able to produce 1 million metric tons of rice, that is completely dramatic. The value of their rice is about 63 billion naira from an investment of 7.5 billion naira. It is possible this country can feed itself. This country can produce enough. All that we need to do is focus on those who are producing. Focus on those who need to do it. Remove the obstacles in the way of giving people who are producing money or resources that they need directly. That's one of the big challenges. But we'll talk a bit more about technology. We believe that technology as well as entertainment can lead the grand expansion of the economy that is needed to provide opportunities for so many young and talented Nigerians. The key to change and our future prosperity lies in innovation. Innovation is critical to our economic prosperity. Every generation thinks it is special. So my children think I'm a dinosaur when I try to figure my way around applications and devices. But history has grander ideas. From town criers to smartphones, from beasts of burden to driverless cars. There is and there will always be new technology reinventing the way we work, reimagining the standard of living we expect, and reshaping the future to come. If you can order food, taxis, or your clothes through an app and monitor the status of these items through to delivery, or complete all your banking through a smartphone, it's not unreasonable to expect also that government will make its services and its support to its citizens as seamless. Already not too long ago, a Nigerian pharmacist from the Department of Pharmaceutical and Medicinal Chemistry, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Justus Nwoga, successfully developed a solar PV panel based on the plant Mimosa pudica, popularly called touch and die plant. Despite the odds, he was able to build solar cells constructed from weed extracts, which when exposed to sunlight were found to accumulate sufficient solar energy that was convertible to electrical energy. Today, Nollywood and our music industry are acknowledged worldwide for their industry and creativity. Both were initiated and developed without any formal assistance. But think of the innovation that another young Nigerian entrepreneur has brought to Nollywood. Jason Njoku has made the Iroko brand the largest mainstream licensors and distributors of over 5,000 Nollywood films and African music. Iroko has attracted $20 million in equity investments. The same Nigerian entrepreneurial and innovative spirit can be seen in Konga and the revolution of online shopping. Or the story of Jobberman, which was listed in the Forbes magazine's top 10 tech startups in Africa. Jobberman was founded about 8 years ago by 3 young techies while they were in school at the Obafemi Awolowo University. They have grown the company into a multi-million-dollar company. The young founders have now divested their interest in the company, and they are investing in other Nigerian startups. All of these have happened without formal state support. Venture Garden Group, a data automation company founded by 3 young Nigerians, average age of 28, focus on big data, automation, and revenue assurance systems. And they've taken innovation to new levels. For example, one of their subsidiaries, PowerTech, provides automation for the national power grid, which now allows real-time monitoring of energy flow from generation to distribution and payments to all parties in the value chain to promote transparency and sustainability of the electricity market. They have their center right here in Abuja. Of course, there are a million others. There's Budget, who we've just heard speak. We have a growing animation industry in Nigeria, demonstrating Nigerians' creativity in producing educational, entertainment, and other informative resources. I was told that representatives of a big Hollywood studio who are looking to outsource their animation projects came and looked at these studios and were impressed with the quality of the work. The challenge that they've experienced is the size of the animation workforce and the infrastructure to render long duration and high-end animation work. Here, the answer, of course, is to fix the scale and enable investments in infrastructure to support this industry. Let me say that the government of Nigeria is paying attention and we recognize the trends. And I'm just going to share with you very quickly the federal government's plan for technology and innovation. This year, and we expect that the budget will go into operation in the next few days. This year, isn't it so interesting that we are all paying attention? As Nigerians, we are all paying attention. All of us are keyed in, and we know exactly what is going on. This year, we're establishing technology innovation hubs across the country. 2 super hubs, one in Lagos and Abuja, and 6 regional technology hubs in the 6 geopolitical zones. In partnership with several major technology companies, the hubs will be fully resourced with infrastructure and capacity building tools. Each hub will be designed to produce relevant, innovative technology solutions to a wide range of business, commercial, and government problems. For example, alternative energy solutions, creative technology, public services, public service deliveries in health, education, and government processes, import substitution, etc. Several major technology companies have not only signed on to partner, but they are also providing infrastructure and opportunity in the hubs. Also starting in July of this year, we have budgeted for the training of 65,000 young Nigerians in hardware and software services and more sophisticated services such as animation. This will mean that we'll be building more local capacity to build and assemble hardware and to write innovative programs. We'll also be focusing on technology for media and entertainment. We intend to create a reservoir of human capacity in technology that can be exported internationally. Nigeria can lead India as a market for technology and innovation and talent. Even our training of 500,000 graduates as volunteer teachers also has a technology component. Each of them, in phases, will be given a device which will contain a variety of technology training applications to enable them attain varying degrees of proficiency in technology. On June 23rd, 2016, we are launching a special presidential initiative on innovative technology. We'll be bringing together to the Villa 50 of the most innovative technology startups. They will be meeting with major technology and innovation companies, as well as venture capital, collaborating with the federal government to take their ideas to the next level. We're also creating technology opportunities in our import substitution and diversification plan by encouraging innovative technologies to spearhead smart domestic production. For example, in agriculture, our extension services will map and match soil data with best crop and harvest practices, ensuring that farmers get relevant and tailored advice via cloud technology. Also, we see immense possibilities for medicine and education. The scale and dimension of our innovation aspirations clearly demonstrate that we hope to achieve a lot in a very short space of time. But we're also farsighted. We know that at the cradle of a production-oriented society and a knowledge economy lies a focus on education in science, in technology, in engineering, and mathematics. otherwise referred to as STEM education. This is why we're incentivizing fresh undergraduates in this area by paying a bursary award to 100,000 STEM undergraduates. We're also going to commence a pilot across the country that tests the conditions for infusing computer programming, robotics and animation in the primary and secondary school curriculum. The goal of the federal government is to use innovation and technology to bring revolutionary change to Nigeria at a pace and on a scale that are unprecedented. But on its own, technology is not enough, because new technology is a tool that merely enables us to transform how services operate to serve citizens. It isn't an end in itself, but it does unlock the door. After all, Google didn't invent hypertext. Apple didn't invent the touchscreen. Uber did not invent GPS, and Twitter didn't even invent the hashtag. In fact, in each case, the underlying programming was funded by the US government, except for the use of hashtag, which was invented not by Twitter, but by its users. This is not an argument for government-directed investment alone. Far from it. Governments do have a role, but it was the market that turned classified defense projects in the US into consumer products enjoyed by billions. What these modern giants did was to invent radically new ways of understanding their customers. And this is why we will continue to urge and encourage the private sector's participation in research, development, and commercialization through funding. In this connection, we're establishing the Innovation Fund to support all downstream research, product development, and commercialization activities carried out by universities, research institutes, enterprises, and the hubs that we're creating. The Innovation Fund is a relatively new idea because we intend to put resources, significant resources, and that is in this budget, to ensure that those who have innovative ideas, that those whose ideas can truly transform, are given an opportunity to access funds cheaply. But the process of doing so, of course, is to prove by some kind of proof of concept that the particular innovation is such as will make a real difference. The second goal is to challenge the Nigerian youth to creativity and innovation. We want to challenge you to think up and build solutions for smart electricity, smart education, smart healthcare, smart agriculture, smart artisanal delivery services, smart manufacturing, and indeed the collection of government revenues. However, we also believe, and in this particular respect, I think that it is true, and if you've looked at all of the hubs that already operate in Lagos, for example, where you have co-creation and you have the other hub, and what is happening around Yaba. It's very true that there is a lot of innovation, a lot of different applications have been developed. The important thing is to identify the particular areas of need in our economy and in our country, and to develop applications that can solve problems in those areas. Any application that can solve a problem is marketable. Any application that can solve a problem does not need too many arguments. The important thing is to be able to ensure that your application gets seen and gets heard. And that is exactly what the federal government has decided to do, to ensure that we create enough opportunities for people to bring forward their technology and their innovation so that government can then help to take it to the next level. However, we also believe that the strength of a nation lies in the capacity for deep thought and introspection. Indeed, great leaders, as Faust said, must be speakers of words and doers of deeds, which is why we also believe that we must promote the humanities and the arts. My office will be giving a little Nobel for the best piece of poetry with a local theme and the best inspirational short story on Nigeria. Both awards are to be made as part of the Independence Day celebrations. I believe strongly that the creativity of the Nigerian goes beyond technology. that the creativity of the young Nigerian is also in the writing, in poetry, in arts, and various other aspects of the humanities. And I believe strongly also that those who think and those who cause us to think are as important as those who create technology. And we must encourage those who make us think. I'm sure somebody over there is like me, an art student, somebody who's clapping there. Which is why, however, we also accept that we must, at this time, encourage everyone who has a talent, who wants to render some kind of service or the other. Creating jobs, as you know, cannot be an easy task. All over the world, there are problems with job creation, all over the world. But Nigeria can do much better. We can do far better than we've done. And I believe very strongly that in the next few months, in the next few years, we will see a much more deliberate effort to create opportunities and to create jobs. As I close, let me say that our nation stands at the threshold of greatness, but our manifest destiny cannot be secured on a platter of gold. There is a status quo. There is an old way of doing things, where corruption was tolerated and was even celebrated, where a public officer who steals resources meant to build hospitals and schools can say, they are persecuting me because I'm from the Southwest, or they are persecuting me because I'm from the Northeast, or because I'm a Christian, or because I'm a Muslim. There is a status quo where those who have stolen more money than even the country's external reserves now fight back through the media and economic sabotage and attempts to bribe law enforcement agents. There is a status quo which promotes ethnicity and religion to advance personal causes and cover wrongdoing. It is from the shackles of this status quo that we must liberate our country. But how? We need a new tribe. We need a new way of thinking. We need a new tribe of Nigerians across tribes and religion who believe that a nation can truly be built on integrity, on hard work, on selflessness and patriotism, who believe that no nation can survive if its leaders are dishonest and selfish. It is that new tribe of men and women, especially the youth, who will form the vanguard of the new Nigeria, a youth who will hold leadership to account, who will not say that anyone is a sacred cow. I believe that many in this audience belong to this new tribe. Why? Why do I believe that you belong to this new tribe? Clearly, any set of young people who will voluntarily attend a long series of lectures on charting a future for Nigeria on a Saturday afternoon must be serious-minded people. These are clearly not men and women who have lost hope or who have given up. I'll end with a story. A few weeks ago, an old friend of mine came to visit me at the villa. It was his first time anywhere near or close to Aso Rock, as he told me. And as he was about to leave, he looked around and said, Aso Rock. So this is where they share our money. But let me ask you today to please change that perception. It's a new day in Aso Rock. Today, I want you to have in your mind the picture of a president, a vice president, and ministers working in that same Aso Rock, day and night, keeping to high standards of integrity, sometimes very late in the night or the early hours of the morning, determined to crack the difficult issues that stand in the way of prosperity and abundance for Nigeria. Have in mind a presidency that is committed and has committed itself to uphold the highest standards of probity and accountability. Have in mind a presidency that will certainly, without a doubt, keep its promises. God bless you.